Good afternoon. My name is Bill Green, CEO of Homestead Smart Health Plans. We're really pleased to bring you another week in the series of the Power Talk series from Philadelphia Magazine. Last week, we heard from Governor Tom Wolf, interviewed by Tamala Edwards, which was great. And this week, we have an exciting show for you, which is Nick Baer, CEO of Saxbys, moderating a conversation with Chris Gheysens, the CEO of Wawa. Seems like Wawa, in any community it goes into, immediately becomes part of it. On March 26th, they announced free coffee for all first responders. They've donated food to local food banks and spent a lot of time and money on their sick leave policies and trying to figure out how to keep their customers and their employees safe during this pandemic. So I really look forward to that conversation. Many employers are trying to figure out how to take care of their employees and continue to provide health insurance and other benefits when their revenues are down, so that they can keep their qualified employees working and being productive during this pandemic, and also deal with the realities of declining revenue. At Homestead Smart Health Plans, we save our clients 20 to 30% on their health benefits they offer employees. We do this by disintermediating the traditional major insurance carriers and paying healthcare providers directly on behalf of employers. We hope you'll consider us for your healthcare needs in this year and the years to come. In the meantime, here is Nick Baer, who will be talking with Chris Gheysens, the CEO of Wawa. Take it away, Nick. We look forward to the program. Thank you.
Welcome to this edition of Philadelphia Magazine's Power Talks. My name is Nick Baer. I'm the founder and CEO of Saxbys, and it is my sincere pleasure to have our special guest today, the CEO of Wawa, Chris Gheysens. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Nick. Really appreciate it. Thanks. Looking forward to the good, productive talk. It's always fun with you.
It is. This is the first one we've had to do in a pretty far distance, but I look forward to being able to be in person, whether it be our breakfast meetings or our coffee meetings. And it looks like we are showing the love for each other's brands. So virtual cheers to you with my Wawa drip.
Well, Nick, I'm in sort of one of our office complexes. I do drink Wawa coffee, you know that, but what people may not know is it's typically like this. I was empty. I had to fill up. If I get caught, with a Saxbys cup on campus, I might get in trouble. But it is liquid courage, right? Your dark blend, which is a fabulous blend. So,
Thank you, Chris. You have great taste. It's great to see you. Well, thanks again for making time. Obviously, I know quite well because of our relationship, but also as a CEO of, albeit a much smaller business, what it's like to be trying to run a business right now and dealing with sort of the COVID and economic crises that we have going on now for the last 7 months. And so I guess if we could first start by, let's level set a little bit. The last 7 months, I think sometimes feel like it's been 7 decades, and then sometimes it feels like it's been about 7 hours. But we're about 7 months into this now. I remember sending my team my weekly KPI report on Monday, March 9th, and I was proud at how well we were doing. Traffic was up, revenue was up, retention of our team members was up, the brand was strong, and then we just got hit by an absolute truck. All of our locations were forced closed the next Monday, and we've been working slowly but surely to get our cafes reopened safely. Can you give us a little bit of insight into the world of Wawa? I'm sure you guys are doing phenomenally well coming into COVID, and what are you dealing with right now?
Yeah, similar. That Mack truck is probably the best analogy that I've heard. Beginning of the year, business was strong. There was a lot of positive factors, both in customer traffic and sales growth. And I think we were teeing up what looked to be a successful year. And then middle of March hit, and we fell off a cliff. So, our business, while we got the chance to remain open as an essential provider with supplies and food and provisioning and fuel, make no mistake, we were impacted pretty dramatically as well. Our sales, as people sheltered at home, were impacted by almost half. And I think that's was an indication of the significant seriousness of the time. And frankly, we've been able to come back at a slow pace, not quite where we were pre-COVID, but I think it's interesting. Wawa has so many locations, sees so many Philadelphians and beyond in our stores, we're a little bit like a bellwether of how people are feeling. And clearly early on, people were nervous, as they appropriately should have been, sheltering in place. And as they've learned more about the disease, as different social distancing, wearing of masks, other preventive behaviors have really become prevalent, people are getting a little bit more comfortable, hopefully not too comfortable, but being out. And we've seen them more in our stores here in the summertime and early fall.
And are you guys in a position now, Chris, and I'm guessing maybe this is for a while now, are all of your locations back, reopened, and operating? I'm sure some were probably shut down either initially or there were COVID outbreaks, but are you guys in a position where you're at least at full count and sort of full strength from a store opening perspective?
Yeah, we are. We have over 900 stores. We've actually continued to open stores. We paused for a couple months, but we've opened stores since June, and it's gone well. But we have kept all of our stores open throughout. We've had to close some, obviously, when there's been a COVID outbreak or an associate that's been exposed. We close that store, deep clean, make sure all the associates on that shift are quarantined for 14 days, restaff and reopen. And, in a sad way, I'm proud of the team, but in a sad way, we've gotten good at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, again, these will be seared in my mind, these dates forever, but obviously Monday, March 9th, great day reporting on the previous week. And then that day, the stock market closed down, over 10 percentage points. Not that the stock market is necessarily a good indicator of the economy, it is important nonetheless. And over the next week, slowly but surely, campuses closing, buildings closing, people retreating to their homes. Take me into the mindset and sort of like the war room at Wawa. Obviously, you're incredibly bright, surrounded by incredibly bright people. It makes me think of the famous business management professor Peter Drucker, who said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast."
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how that sort of came to the forefront for you, where you were probably dealing with all kinds of different stores, all kinds of different challenges and geographies. How did that settle in for you and start to give you sort of the northern light to follow at Wawa?
Yeah, it's a great question. And our business, both our store operations as well as we led the company, changed radically on that date. In one way, our aperture, we got very narrow and deep. And focused on all the things we needed to. So from a leadership perspective, we do have a pretty good core set of values that people across our organization are aware of. And we hire people that believe in those values. And they're all the things that a good business like yours as well believe in. You want to value people. So in this case, keeping our associates and customers safe, especially as we remained open in those really uncertain weeks at the onset and then throughout. We formed teams and really throughout the way we work completely, sprint teams in a bunch of key areas that became very important for us. One, people. So we had a people team that was really focused on how do we best take care of our associates, the 36,000 Wawa associates. When they're out there working in the front lines, the corporate office, who at that point, begun working remotely, how do we keep them safe? What are the benefits? What's the pay? What's all of the things we need to take into account to make sure that they're going to want to show up to work and feel like we're taking care of them? We had teams that one of them was named the safest retailer team, and that was simply the mandate of, I wanted to be sure that we had every process, procedure, piece of equipment, sanitization device, and that possible, because as we remained open, again, our mandate, and it was based on our culture of valuing people, was really about how do we keep customers and associates safe. And so we invested tremendously in that, as a lot of retailers did and had to, those that remained open. And we had calls every morning, every night, and it was really hands-on. Our management team, which is more thinking usually in normal times about strategy and what's coming around the corner and our more significant initiatives, well, that was put aside. We were talking about plexiglass shields, social distancing markers, sanitizer, and where we can get it and stay in stock, what we're doing for our associates in terms of benefits and pay. So, it really became the culture first. And the good news at Wawa is, I think really that was natural. that was not a stretch for us. And, there was, I'm sure, as you know, just really hard decisions, sleepless nights around the whole situation and the notion of putting people first. And, quite frankly, yeah, we had a lot of struggle and debate and conflict and around keeping our stores open at a time when it was uncertain. And so what we do in our culture is we talk to our associates in the front line. We get out to our stores. We over communicate. There was a lot of misinformation, a lot of knowledge that needed to be put out, not just about Wawa, but even about the virus. So, as leaders, we were doing daily videos from our stores and making sure that our associates were armed with information about what we were doing to keep them safe and continuing to get feedback in multiple ways on what we needed to do to continue to pivot. And let me tell you, we pivoted, it felt like every hour. You had CDC, state, and then Board of Health at the local level. They didn't all agree all the time. And so we had to make some pretty hard decisions and always, fell back to the most conservatives. So there was a county in New Jersey early on that declared that self-serve coffee, which is our business model, was not allowed in that county. We rolled that out effectively within 48 hours, actually less, to every county that we operate in all 6 states. And while it wasn't a requirement, everyone else, we just believed in the science and the wherewithal of those officials and their thinking that was the right thing to do. And as I reflect back, that pace, the ability to adapt, the resiliency of the individuals at store level pulling this off, it was inspiring. It was what kept, I think, leaders up, to be able to push through, to see that people personally sacrifice to be there as an essential provider. And in our terminology, they're there serving their friends and neighbors. And they believe that. And at a time when that crisis is so significant, both as a business and personally, to see associates rise up through that and really live out our values in that way, we knew it was an easy choice to just put them first. So we've invested quite a bit through this. As a private company, as a board that has a makeup of family and owners, and as an ownership of associate owned and family owned, the alignment was pretty simple. We made some big decisions early on to invest in our associates in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. And I never looked back on that. It was exactly the right thing to do. So
there's so many fascinating things there. I want to try to make sure I put a pin in mentally to come back to a few of those. One of which is, obviously there's a lot of things Wawa is incredibly well known for, one of which is sort of the self-serve coffee station. Mm-hmm. So essentially what you guys have done is you've now made that a situation where associates will now prepare the coffee for the guests who are coming into your store, right? And so Obviously there are some people who've been probably going to Wawa and serving themselves coffee in that manner for 60 years, potentially even more at this point. Yeah. How has that gone over? Because I know I saw sort of the glisten in your eye. You're like, that's a big pivot for us. But in this world, we had to make that change and roll it out. How's that gone?
I think because of the business you're in, you can appreciate maybe, listening from the outside, you can say, what's the biggest pivot? No. That was just from a process perspective. We weren't prepared for that. And then from a customer perspective, it went well. It went as well as it could have. It was the right thing to do to keep people safe. We certainly heard from customers, to your point, early on and often, that they wanted their self-serve coffee back, period. They like making their coffee the way they do. And I'm sure you see it in your business as we do ours. People make coffee in some highly unique ways that only they can do when they have all those ingredients on that coffee bar. So we pivoted back at the right time. We came back in now a couple months ago, back to self-serve coffee. We've adjusted even a lot of those processes where things that you may have touched, like straws or lids in combination, you now have the opportunity to get those out of devices in a singular manner, to really give people the option to just continue to be as safe as they can and they choose. So big decision. And we pivoted away from a lot of the products that we make just to narrow down our menu. And again, the right thing to do to be able to deliver an experience, because in our environment, while we contain the number of people by rule that we are allowed in our stores now, and it varies by state. We also wanted to make sure that people got in and out even quicker. And let's face it, in a socially distanced world, a normal Wawa line when people are stacked up on each other at the register looks and feels long. We despise those. But now when you're 6 feet away, a line can quickly wrap around, the building almost. So we really were trying to be thoughtful on doing some things to put right people in the right places and move our customers in and out more quickly than normal. So
Yeah.
tough decisions. And what was great is we pushed them down. Don't make any belief that I made those decisions. They were individuals at the right level, closest to our stores, closest to hearing from our customers that are making those decisions. And in my opinion, that's exactly the right way it should be.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. And I think, so I obviously know that both you and I are zealots for the idea of company culture. And we've actually spoken on this topic together, like on a stage before. And look, I think that I see it. I don't know if people have necessarily said it directly to me, but I see it where people in the good old days when like everything was booming and things were great, people will roll their eyes at that a little bit and say like, that's just kumbaya. It's a kumbaya kind of thing. But I've heard from people before, they say like all good companies have a mission core values. They might have them in a handbook. Some people might know a couple of them. The truly great companies not only have them front and center, they hire people based on it, but they make the hardest decisions based on them. This is probably, I don't want to speak for you necessarily, but this has got to be the hardest thing we've ever done in our professional careers, is trying to guide our teams through this, multiple levels of crises that we're dealing with right now. And so culture is what we keep coming back to and what we use to be able to sort of rally around that. And one of the things I find fascinating about Wawa, and you mentioned it before, is a significant part of the company is associate owned. You guys have an ESOP, and I'm really fascinated by that. I think as we are seeing capitalism under the biggest fire it's probably ever been under right now, that there are such wage differences, that employees are just robots. You guys, although you've had that in place for a long time, I think in many ways you guys are the leaders. Like I think that's what it's going to look like moving forward. And tell me if I'm wrong, but you guys making those decisions for the health of your associates, for the health of your guests, instead of jamming those down store level employees' throats, they're making those decisions because they're owners in the business as well. Has that really helped you guys in making those decisions?
It has. I mean, you're right. So percent of Wawa is owned by our employees, and it's one of the largest ESOPs, which is a retirement plan vehicle that you get for free. You just need to work here. And it's in Wawa stock. And while we're not traded publicly, we have quarterly valuations. And to me, it's the most beautiful model in good time and in bad, which we've found out. And that is, look, you come to work, you work hard. You hopefully feel like you're part of this family. There's a personal connection, the values that we have. And by the way, you're taking care of yourself long term, because if you do well and connect, great customer experience, you're going to do well because our share value is going to grow. And that's what your retirement's based in. And there are plenty of stories here of people, being with us for a long time and enjoying that. That gives us an advantage, we think, in a service and a retail business, because not just the job. And so, yes, there's always alignment. I think what we get is alignment, but it's not without pushback from our stores, which we're all ears, because again, the stores are the ones running the show here. There's no registers at our corporate office, and there's no customers come in there. They're all in our stores. So, but then culture, we've been on an interesting journey, and since I've been CEO, trying to just bring a little clarity to our culture. And so we put some more frames and some more words to it. And I think as I've grown up a little bit, I realized I'm not sure any of that's worth it. Culture almost is this thing, a set of behaviors that you nurture and it grows and it lives. And maybe it shouldn't be as easily defined. But at the onset of COVID, one of the concerns I had was we knew while we were changing and created these sprint teams, we could not make every decision in a boardroom over here, our senior team. And so we wanted to try to give a set of even more explicit ideas around our culture, founded in our culture. So, I sent out an email to our entire leadership team and a few things. And I just said, one, make the best decision for the long term. we don't know how long this is going to last. Do the right thing long term. We've always done that. It always works out. We stand for taking care of the community, no matter the circumstances, was another thought of, now could be a time where people pull back, focus on what's happening in the store, maybe trying to cut costs. Philly and our communities need us the most at this time. And our main responsibility was keeping the community safe and providing resources to them and invest in taking care of our associates, regardless of the cost. And it's funny, I actually, in the initial one, I threw out a big number to try to scare people. I said, even if we spend this big number, we ended up spending 2 times that big number.
So you scared yourself.
I scared myself, actually, in hindsight. And then how we work at Wawa in our culture, we can be a little collegial, too nice at times. And I said, at a time like this, we got to don't be afraid to challenge each other. Hierarchy doesn't exist in rooms right now. And then it was, everyone is anxious. Remember to be empathetic. Remember to be understanding. We all know that always, but it's especially needed now. So just trying to give a little bit more guidance to leaders that maybe on an everyday basis weren't making the magnitude of the decisions they had to, especially early on in the pandemic. And I think it played dividends because all of those things were born straight out of what our values and culture is.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have it, right? I mean, it's because it's the companies we are all dealing with that Mack truck right now. And the companies that are running around saying, why are some people running right? Some people are running left. Some are ducking under desks because they don't have culture. They don't have that sort of northern light that they all sort of like bought into and sort of gives them the opportunity to be able to make decisions moving forward. I love one of the words you actually used, which as someone who spends a lot of time in higher ed, and I have the opportunity to speak to a lot of upstarts, startup entrepreneurs, we use the word pivot all the time. Is it like, great, you're a 19-year-old in your dorm at Drexel, you've written a business. The one thing we know for certain is it will pivot before you see any sort of success. Like something is going to change. But I think the notion in the world of entrepreneurship is that small businesses pivot. Wawa is not a small business. Wawa has been around a long, long time, is a very large, very successful business. And I've heard you say multiple times on how you've had to pivot. And so on a macro level for a pivot, over the last 7 months, all the things you guys have learned that you've done well, not done well, how does the vision for the future of Wawa change as we sit here in October of 2020? How has that changed or pivoted?
Yeah, the speed of adapting to the little things was clear early on, and all of the necessary but super important things relative to keeping customers and associates safe. Thousands of mini pivots every day. There was a couple bigger ones. We took this as an opportunity to look at our strategies as we started to see a clearer day in early summer and reevaluated and reprioritized. So we brought delivery up significantly. So now you can get delivery from a Wawa through any of the major delivery services. And we're even expanding the menu more. It's not the full menu in our stores, not full assortment. And we're putting it in every store as we speak. Early on, our model was to put it just in a market. So if a town had 3 Wawas, we'd put it in one. We're going in all in because we want to be the quickest in delivery with the best quality and best prices for the offer we have. And so that we pivoted quickly to curbside ordering and pickup. You could have gone to the Avalon, New Jersey store this year, parked, and someone could have come to your window with an iPad and taken your order and run it out to you. Payment without ever getting out of your car. So, that is a model that we've tested. We've always been good test and learn. We just brought a lot of these ideas, quite honestly, lucky for us that we had on the sidelines in a COVID world we thought made sense. And, one of the bigger ones that I think there's some excitement around is developing a drive-through model. So, within 60 days, we had a team that built a drive-through Wawa inside of our innovation center here. And we were running models through it and reshaping and redesigning it, and still are doing that. Because, that was maybe a nice to do in a COVID world because you saw, especially early on, how well drive-through was performing. That's not a long-term play because I think things will, in terms of they'll rationalize out. But for us, it allowed us to get a little bit more creative, even take a little bit more risk than maybe we would have in the past. Will it work? I honestly have no idea. Customers, there's a couple of key points around it that customers will tell us. So we're building one of those, which is a drive-through only up in Falls Township in PA, and then over in West Hampton, New Jersey, we're adding drive-through to a new fuel store to, again, in the pivoting to ideas that, a standalone drive-through could be a future growth model for Wawa. It doesn't mean we'll move away from a fuel store, in the suburbs or some of our urban stores, and I think we have opportunity to look at different models. So pivoting, luckily for us, the main pivot, I think, in all of our businesses and retail is just do what the customer wants you to do. Don't make it overly complex. And so, at the end of the day, focusing on being clean, focusing on sanitizing, focusing on trying to get them in and out as quick as possible, some short-term things, and now what are the long-term ideas that I just shared? Just focus on what the customer wants, and you'll win the day in retail.
That's great. I mean, a lot of huge nuggets there. I mean, I think hearing you talk about drive-throughs, I can't imagine 2 years ago you were probably spending a whole lot of time talking about drive-throughs, and to see a company of your guys' scale dealing with all the things you're dealing with, to be able to, on a drop of a dime, get a drive-through built at your innovation center and get it to market so quickly. That's impressive, big company pivoting. And I think, again, it goes back to culture. You have people who have bought into what Wawa stands for, and that's something you and your team hopefully are really proud of.
Yeah, it is. Nick, I'll tell you, the team that's worked on that, and you're right, in your opening, I have a lot of smart people that work here that are so dedicated. And they typically, in a Wawa, to get a Wawa fuel store open, we see the dirt to the day we get open, 3 years, at least. Wow. In the Mid-Atlantic, sometimes more. We're going to be able to get the drive-through open from idea to open in under 9 months. It's pretty amazing.
That's exciting. Yeah. Awesome. That's really great, Chris. So let's talk a little bit about Philadelphia. Obviously in so many ways, Wawa and Philadelphia is a long-standing love story. And so many people here in Philadelphia grow up with Wawa. I'm actually not from here originally, but I was indoctrinated to Wawa really quickly. But I was moving here at a time when Wawa wasn't as prevalent in the city as it is now. So, now a lot of Wawas throughout the city. I walk my son to school from Center City, through Center City every single morning. I pass by the 1900 block of Market Wawa. I pass by the 1700 block of Arch Wawa. And sadly, they're two of the only businesses that are actually open. And, talk a little bit, Chris, about why you guys felt, 'cause I'm sure there were times where it might not have made great business sense to have those stores be open and operating. So can you talk a little bit about why you guys made that decision?
Yeah. And so overall, as an essential provider through COVID, make no mistake, we were losing a lot of money early on remaining open. We just see that as part of our responsibility. That's always been part of our DNA, to be there. That's part of the convenience store DNA, even broader than Wawa. And I feel for the businesses in the city that are suffering. Many have. I don't know how equitable that suffering really is when you see that a Wawa is open. And, the reality, though, is as a leader in the city, you as well as me and Wawa's, this is our hometown. We have a responsibility. So we've been on the front really trying to, in many ways, help just the community out, whether it's been the first responders and teachers and trying to give them a little boost with free coffee and helping them, or if it's been more in broader ways, helping food banks. So on the community, on the philanthropy front, we've really upped what we've been doing in a significant way. And then on the civic side, I'm part of this recharge and recovery effort that a lot of the business leaders have come together, but more importantly, not just them. It's really a true public and private partnership. You have the mayor, you have the 5 counties around Philadelphia, you have the governor, really engaged with business leaders to try to chart out a course, not to reopen, but after reopening, to give Philadelphia a better chance in the region of recovery. And, I've spent a good amount of my time just trying to add whatever value I can on that journey and resources from Wawa, as well as a lot of other leaders. And, these are all the things that I think just good businesses do. It's hard. Let me tell you, at times when you're being pulled in the direction because of a pandemic, because your business is under fire, it again goes back to culture and our responsibility to to be servant leaders, not just to the organization here, that's our primary focus, but to the region. And so, we're trying our best. We have, I'm sure, more we can do. But what's really great, Philadelphia has so many great individuals that have really stood tall throughout all of this. And you look both on the public side, you look inside of city government, look inside of business, what philanthropy and different nonprofits are doing. That gives me tremendous sense of confidence that we're going to come out of this okay. And I know there's going to be some darker days. I know there's going to be some challenges that lie ahead. But what I've seen, at least the purview I have, is quite a bit of good happening and great things happening in Philadelphia.
That would be probably a great way to end. I mean, I think, Chris, that was that was really great. I think we all realize that we're dealing with a tough time right now in Philadelphia. We've got our school district is obviously closed. They're going to virtual classes, obviously, for this entire end of the school year. We're looking at a city government budget that might be upside down, upwards of $1 billion.
Yep.
And I do think, as you said at the outset of this, in many ways, Wawa is sort of a bellwether for Philadelphia. And being able to walk by those stores and go into your stores in the morning and seeing your associates with clearly smiles underneath their masks, and seeing people going in there to be able to have some sort of sense of normalcy with other human beings inherently is giving people confidence. And it's going to take, as you said, the leadership of great business people like yourself, the mayor, the mayor's office, our elected and non-elected leaders throughout the city, both in the public and private sector, to get out of this. Because Philly was in a pretty good place coming into COVID. And it's amazing how quickly decades of sort of building up to that could go away. So we really, really appreciate your leadership, and thanks for making the time. This is Philadelphia Magazine's Power Talks, featuring Wawa's phenomenal CEO, Chris Gheysens. Chris, thanks so much.
Nick, you're awesome. Appreciate it. Great talk. Thanks.